Hello and welcome back to DriveDriverDriven. I'm Humble and we're back on the MK today. So last time we did a little bit of cleanup on the chassis, a little bit of cleanup on the transmission. This time we're gonna do a little bit of CAD work. So let me show you the chassis and kind of what the game plan is. So up in here in the front of the chassis, you can see where we painted, everything looks nice now. But up in the front here is where I plan to mount our oil air separator, the spin trick unit. That is this guy here. So if I spin this around to the right orientation, we'll just kind of drop it on the chassis roughly. So that's kind of where I'm thinking it's going to fit. It may move right or left, but that's roughly the position it's going to sit in. So our input is on this side and our oil and air outputs are on this side. All the oil intake and output are on this side of the engine. And then from here, this will go up into our oil cooler, come back out, and then make its way towards the tank. So we'll have to run our lines carefully down on this side of the car to avoid the exhaust or anything. So that's a plan for future me, but right now I'm just kind of worried about getting this mounted. I thought about putting it in a couple of different orientations, so that was one idea. I thought about mounting it vertically, something like this in this area, but I didn't want to block any airflow that was coming through or interrupt any access that might be handy to reach through and get to things. So like I had considered putting a panel in here and then mounting this guy to that panel, but our oil output hose will be kind of sitting more like this guy, but our oil output would have to wrap around into this. Our oil would come up out of this, and it kind of puts everything in the wrong direction. I would like to keep our air output low so that I can run it all the way back to the tank and then come up and into the tank and breather system versus having it come out, wrap back down low again and come out. I'm trying to avoid having anything up on this top rail or close to this top rail because the exhaust is going to be coming out this side of the motor, down, and then through this hole that we made bigger earlier. Anything above the exhaust is just going to be too hot, in my opinion, even with heat shields and stuff like that. And I don't want to run the risk of melting hoses. So I want to run all the hoses low next to the motor, underneath the motor mount, down in this channel where there's going to be, well, fresh air, cooler air, that sort of thing. Yes, the exhaust will be near it, but all that heat will be coming up and out of the area versus the cool air rushing down below. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. We'll see how it plays out, but that's the direction I'm headed. So the game plan is to just mount it up in this area, and it gives us the most options for our plumbing runs. And if we need to update down the road, that's easy enough to do. This has the side benefit of tying these tubes back together again. Now, when I mention CAD, of course I mean cardboard aided design, and we're going to use the garage mechanic fabricator's best friend cereal box, and we're just going to draw a template on this kind of triangle from down below. And the goal is we don't want it to come past where we had to cut. So ideally about here is where we're going to stop it. And we're just going to draw in a triangle into this area. And I'm going to draw it a little big on each side. And like we've done on the Ultima, use a piece of wood, a hammer or drift or something like that. And after the panel is riveted to the chassis, you fold the edges down and file it for a cleaner look. And I kind of like the way that looks. It kind of feels a little more aircraft inspired, just a cleaner finish. So that's the way I'm gonna go. So first steps first, let's make our template, and then we'll go and cut out our aluminum. You saw me tapping away at it, but here you go. Easy enough. You saw me do the cardboard template, just laying something across the pipes here, across the tubes, drawing down each side to get our rough shape, and then cut it out, drill some holes, pop the rivets in, and there you go. The one kind of important lesson I've learned in the past is to mark which side of your panel and template are top or of an important dimension, so that you don't flip things around backwards. Not that anyone's ever done that before on this transmission or anything, but anyway, with that done, so that's in the car, it's riveted down. To get these edges started, I just used a piece of wood as a drift to just get the bend started. And then I followed up with a brass hammer. And if you're doing something like this, you can know when the panel is up against the tube because you'll hear a tone change as you're hitting it with the hammer. And that's a sign that it's just not going to go any more than that. And the end result is you get this nice curve around the edge of the tube. And I just like that look. So now that that's in, this guy can sit comfortably pretty much anywhere we want to put it. And it can live happily up there. And I'm not sure if I'll keep it centered or if I will offset it a little bit just to make plumbing easier as more of a straight shot off the pan and into this guy. Weirdly, on the motor, or I should say on our dry sump pan, so on this guy, our input is at the front and our output is at the back, which means that the lines will have to crisscross once we do our plumbing. But I would like to have as straight a shot as we can to come up off of this guy and maybe over the top of these and then into that air oil separator. And then this guy will come down underneath because it's going to have to drop kind of below the transmission here anyway to come across to the bottom of our oil tank. So we'll get to that shortly. But the impetus here is that I want to try and minimize any plumbing and kinks coming basically off the pump and into our air oil separator. And then from this side, having this over to the driver's side a little more means that there's more plumbing options to either run a 90 and then, right down this side of the block, or come all the way over and against the body. I'm not sure how we're going to do this side just yet, but I would like to run these down next to the pan and secure it to the engine block, maybe on this side, down here, right next to the oil pan, and use these bolt holes off of the block to secure those lines and tuck them back here behind the engine mount. We'll see if that works out, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. So with those out of the way, the next step is to get that engine back in the car, and I know I'm going to have to wrestle with it, so bear with me. It's really more of a function of having to twist that motor ever so slightly. It's got to canter over like 10 degrees, 15 degrees, something like that, which is just hard to do because you have to fight the weight of the engine to get that settled in. So have fun watching me struggle. Here we go. After a little bit of wrestling, we got the engine and transmission in, and I guess one tip that I discovered this time around is keep this side engine mount on and remove this engine side mount if you have your steering column in. Otherwise, you could leave it on. What I found though is in the rear, you can support the transmission underneath here with a jack and pull this mount clean out, get everything slid back into position, drop the front mounts in, and then again keep the transmission supported, put this mount on, and then drop it into place. And that was significantly easier than when we were trying to remove it, tilting the motor, all that BS. That just makes life so much simpler because you can get this mount in, put this mount on, get it into place. That rotates everything into the position it needs to be. And then when it comes time to do this rear mount, you can just lift everything up. It's already rotated into position, and then you can just slide the mount in place and drop it. It's so much easier. I'm not sure if that's in the instructions or not. Again, it's been so long since I've worked on this that I've forgotten the install instructions, but just doing that now, that seems like that's the way you're supposed to do it. Back to the task at hand. So engine is in. I've got our little air oil separator up here. You can see kind of how close everything is and how much room we have on the plate and the front of the engine. Just about an inch gap, give or take. And that's all we needed to slip everything into place and make sure. And I still have the old mounts on, so when I lower everything by an inch, inch and a half, whatever, we have enough clearance to get by. I did try to fit the exhaust on our new widened hole, and it still doesn't fit. It doesn't fit by another huge margin. Like, it's just, we widened this by about an inch and a half maybe, and I think we need to go another inch and a half to 2 inches, basically where this line is all the way down, in order to get that stock exhaust to fit. And I'm wondering if I want to do that. I know I said we could just put a plate on there and sort of fix it in post, as it were. And I might still do that, but at the end of the day, I'm going to have a custom exhaust built. So I'm just hurrying and humming over whether I make that mod to the body, even though I won't need it in the end, or if I just want to make that mod to the body, clean it up again and just fix it in post with a plate, what have you. Just like a simple louvered plate, dress it up, make it look nice, whatever. I mean, we can use it to get airflow in and out of the engine bay, so it's not all bad. It's just we're having to make this hole quite a bit bigger than I had envisioned. I don't know, I'm gonna think on that a little bit more. Otherwise, everything else went pretty good. It was easy enough to get the motor into place, just having to tilt it with the leveler. And it was easy enough to do as a one-man show, so it's not too bad. I did scuff up the valve cover a little bit. I'm going to see how much of this I can just pull out with a Brillo pad or something, just scrub it out. But that's a dress-up item. I don't care. It's just yellow powder coat, same as the chassis. We can fix that later. That's not a problem. So I'm not too worried about it. Now that the engine's back in, hopefully, fingers crossed for the last time, we can start on plumbing. So as far as plumbing goes, I think I'm going to leave that for next episode. I'm pretty sure this is going to be kind of a short one, but I'm wiped out trying to wrestle that engine and transmission in. And I'm pretty happy with where we've got today. I need to think on the lines, how we're going to run them, and I've mentioned it several times before, order of operations, like which lines should we do first, which lines are more important to get their run sort of established first, and then go from there. Fuel's easy, it's one line, back to front, that's not a problem. What I'm worried about is our water and oil lines. There's not a lot of room for our water lines to run, and there's not a lot of room for our electric water pump to fit. So I think that's going to be our first priority. And then we'll get to the oil lines and work around the water lines just as we need to. Like I said, there's not a lot of room where all these lines need to run on the driver's side of the car. And basically, I'm just worried about a bundle of snakes for, better or worse is what it's going to look like. All the lines I got are PTFE, so I'm prepared to have sore hands again. We've been through this before with the Ultima, and it's time to do it all again. So that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.